we can discuss it in the class. Okay. Yes, Abia, how did your practicals go?
Bio and psychology went good, others went bad.
Okay, so you have biology with psychology as well.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's nice. That's good. So how do you like psychology as a subject?
Easy.
Easy. And biology?
Sometime hard, sometime easy.
Okay. So
Good evening, sir.
good evening, Harpit. How are you?
Sam, good, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Okay. So so the neuroscience branch in which also I am pursuing my research career. So it's split between neurobiology and neuropsychology, right? Because psychology is all about study of the properties of the brain, like the manifestation of brain, which we call as mind, right? So brain is an organ. So if you're just studying at the organ level, it's neurobiology. And if you go to the behavior and the reasons behind it, and so it comes under neuropsychology. So what I find very interesting is that in my university also, the psych students, they like to call themselves psych students, right? Abia must be knowing this. So do you also call it like the psych period or something?
No, sir.
No. Okay. So it has a cool ring to it though. I agree with that. But so what to distinguish the neuroscience, which biologists do, they call it neurobiology. Okay. So, and different, their one is a neuropsychology. So it's interesting. But what do you want to do, Abia? Do you have any plans with psychology?
Currently, no.
No? Okay. So I thought you were you want to become a clinical neuropsychologist or something. You can look forward to it, right? Those are also professions you can look forward to if you have psychology right from the beginning. Okay. Anyway, so Kulsum has joined in. How are you, Kulsum? You missed the class yesterday. Kulsum, am I audible to you? Okay, I don't think. Okay, cool. So Arpit and Fatima, Fatima, would you like to give a quick summary of the last? We started a new chapter, so just to put your batchmates in context, would you like to give a quick summary? I hope you're not traveling today.
Yes, I'm not traveling.
Great. Good. Would you like to start?
Okay, I will start.
Thank you.
So we started studying about biodiversity. Conservation part, we'll do it later. Biodiversity, we divided into two words, bio and diversity. Bio means life, diversity means varieties. We first looked at diversity in our neighborhood, that is between cats, dogs, cattle, insects, lizards, and calotes. Then we define.
Calotes is simply garden lizard. It's calotes.
Okay, calotes, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Then we spoke about biodiversity, that it was given by a sociobiologist, Edward Wilson.
It was so this term was popularized by Edward Wilson.
Okay, this term was popularized by Edward Wilson. We studied the three different levels of various levels of biodiversity, which is genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecological diversity. Genetic diversity is where a single species shows higher diversity at a genetic level in its habitat.
Great.
Species, for example, Mangifera indica, mango, or rice. There is many varieties of rice
Correct.
and mango. Like over 1,000 varieties of mango are there.
Mhm.
Then we studied about species diversity at the level of species when compared between two different but similar habitats. Is there species diversity is there when the level of two species? What am I saying?
Yeah, species diversity is simply when you compare two habitats. They can be differently located but similar in nature, and then you compare the diversity of species in these two habitats. We gave the example of Eastern Ghats and Western Ghats, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Also, okay, then ecological diversity. It is studied at the ecosystem level where many ecosystems are compared with each other. I mean, with other ecosystems. Yeah, each other.
Yeah, not just many ecosystems are compared. We also see that how many ecosystems are present together in a region. Like we compare between countries here, right? Or regions. You can compare between continents, or you can compare, like you can say that compared to the Australian continent, the Asian continent has more more ecological diversity, or compared to the European countries, the India has more biodiversity. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Good.
And then we studied this pie chart.
Mm.
All of us give 6 sentences about the pie chart.
Yeah.
Then
Good.
we studied, we were starting to study patterns of biodiversity.
Yes. So about this pie chart, thank you so much, Fatima, for the summary.
No, it's okay, sir.
Yeah. And for Kulsum and Abia. So in this pie chart, I asked Arpit, Fatima, and Matthew yesterday to summarize what they understand in 6 sentences from this pie chart. So you, Abia and Kulsum, can also do the same exercise after the class on your own, and you can get back to me. You can send me what you think, what is your views. So basically the overall take home from the pie charts were, which all three, Fatima, Arpit, and Matthew, correctly pointed out, were that among the invertebrates, as you can see, so this is a pie chart which shows the species diversity.
Sir?
Yes, Arpit.
So I have a
Tell me.
doubt in this vertebrate pie chart. Sir,
Yes.
the biodiversity of amphibians and mammals are same, right? Like they appear to be same.
We can't exactly. So we cannot exactly say that if it is same. Okay. In numbers, but we can say what we can say is that among the 100% of vertebrates, you will find as much diversity in mammals as you will find in amphibians. Somewhere similar, yes. So what is the doubt? That why is it same?
Like I was asking, is it same or is it
Yeah,
like
it is
less?
similar.
Because
We
it is
can
not,
use
we
the word,
cannot.
yeah, we can use the word similar. So if you see in mammals and amphibians, there are similar diversity of species, but the point that where are they situated is very different. So you will find amphibians concentrated at particular niche. So for amphibians to be present, you need both water and land, right? Mammals have no such obligations. So even camels are mammals who live in deserts, correct?
Yes, sir.
Where there is no water, and whale is a mammal that lives in water where there is no land. So mammals show a very diverse adaptation as well, along with their distribution on the planet. But amphibians, more or less, mostly, you will not find amphibians surviving in very arid and dry conditions, which stay dry throughout. You may find that due to seasonal fluctuations, they breed. They might breed when there is water and not breed when there is no water. But in deserts, finding amphibian diversity is unlikely. Okay. So mammals are more, if you say number, so remember these charts don't tell you about number, they just say the diversity of species, how many different kinds of species could be present. So mammals in terms of number are no doubt, more than amphibians on the planet, if that is your doubt. So it might look to you, so what you look and what you infer can be misleading from this graph. You will think that there is as many mammals as amphibians are there on the planet, right? That's not true. If we go
Okay.
by, yeah, if we go by weight, there is far more weight of insects on the planet than all the humans combined, right? Because insects are a lot. Okay, so you can see that their diversity is so much. Now, along with that diversity, for every species there will be millions and billions of insects, not just few. But in mammals, sometimes you will see only few, in the world. So if you talk about the northern white rhinoceros, there are just a few, and there's no male among that because that's critically endangered in the wild, about to get extinct if we do not revive it back. On the other hand, if you see goats, domesticated goats, they are plenty. If you see gazelles and wildebeests, they are plenty on the planet. But again, if you go to whales or African elephants, they again will be less in number. Correct?
Yes, sir.
So currently, the planet is called to be dominated by mammals. So we live in the mammalian era. Before that, it was reptiles. Okay, when dinosaurs used to rule the planet, they were reptiles. Now it is mammals, and mostly because of us humans, we are the predominant mammal species on the planet, who has the power to change the planet, ruin the planet, conserve the planet. So that's where, from a very early stage, we should focus on conservation, and that's why this chapter is there. Okay, so you belong to a mammalian species with some power at hand. So what you go further to do when you reach some level of authority and power depends on you. Okay, that's why this education is there. Cool. Yes. So the major take home was that insects predominate the invertebrate, whereas fish predominate the vertebrates. And in plants, you will see angiosperms as the most dominating category of plants on planet. Along with angiosperms, fungi, which are not exactly plants but comes under the flora. Fungi are as diverse as angiosperms on the planet. Lichens are very, very scarce on the planet, or very few, because of some reasons pointed out by Fatima very correctly, that that is pollution. I think Arpit also contributed to that discussion. And ferns, anyways, ferns and mosses, especially the bryophytes, they are less because they need the environment and the habitat near water where they can grow. Okay, so their niche is very, very limited. That's why their diversity is also very limited, because they cannot, to be diverse. See, one thing that directly affects diversity is how adaptive that particular population is. So the more adaptive you are, you will see adaptive behaviors and adaptive physiology in insects a lot. Every insect does something or the other very different from the other insects to adapt to its environment. Okay, butterflies, fly, but most of the ants cannot fly, but then they have also some other adaptive behaviors and physiology which helps them. Some insects are poisonous, some are not, some sting for their defense, some just are very fast escapers. It's very hard to catch them. So all different sorts of things. So that's why you will find insects almost everywhere where humans are. Okay, but not true with ferns or mosses or lichens. So this is clear. Anyone wants to contribute anything to
So why
this?
do the insects have to be where humans are there? Why they can't be anywhere else?
Yes, right. I mean to say on every continent where humans are, right? Yes, they are, of course, they are present in the forests where humans are not present. Okay, but they are also present where humans are present. Okay, for example, ferns and lichens you will not find in places where humans mostly predominantly live, because then those regions whether they are rural these days or urban, they have some or the other level of pollution, which is created by humans, right? So it's different for lichens to grow there. But still, if you go to some very clean villages in India and other parts of Europe, you will find that in villages you will find you can lichens growing. You don't have to just go to forest to see them. Okay, but again, they're not very diverse in terms of types of species or the relationship that becomes between algae and fungi. There are very few diversity. Their numbers might be more in one region, which is a forest, and very less in urban region, but the diversity in general is low. So is the difference between diversity and number clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in today's class, I'll be starting with the patterns of biodiversity. And for this, I ask you to go back and read about the overall climatic belts which are there on planet Earth, right? Did you go and looked at it? So if I was talking about this, so you know that Earth is tilted at an angle of 23.5 degrees on its rotation, right? And right from the center goes the equator, and in the north you will find another belt which are tropic belts. Two tropic belts are there. In the northern hemisphere you will find it is Tropic of Cancer, and in the southern hemisphere it is Tropic of Capricorn, right? So Tropic of Cancer goes through India, and Tropic of Capricorn is in the southern hemisphere. I'm not sure which country it goes through, but so the region between the equator and the tropics is called the tropical region. Then you have a North Pole and a South Pole. So the region between tropic of both the tropic lines and the tundra is the temperate zone. So this is temperate, okay, and this is tropical, and then this final is tundra. Okay, so temperate, tropical, and tundra. This is also tundra. So there are two tundras, north and south, two temperates, okay, between Tropic of Capricorn and the South Tundra, and between Tropic of Cancer and the North Tundra, and the tropical again on the both side of the equator. There is tropical. But what scientists have realized, so the question that we started with in the last class was, is this diversity of organisms completely random, or it actually depends on something, on some factors or some conditions? So yeah, Arpit.
So I figured out one point, sir.
Yes, tell me.
So like, so what I think is like in that region, sir, there is no human interference yet. So,
Which regions?
Sir, where there's a biodiversity and the animals are found.
Are more.
Yeah.
Okay. And why do you believe so?
So I think that there is no as such human interference in that region, no construction, like deforestation and destroying their habitats. Like I thought this, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So your point has one merit and one demerit. So you mean to say that, so where do you think most of the humans live? It's a good point you brought up, but let's see, where do you think most of the humans live on Earth?
Sir, in the tropical region.
Tropical region, right?
Yeah.
So most of the countries, habitable zones, good zones are in the tropical region. We don't
Yes.
see much population in the Arctic or in the Antarctic, right?
Yes, sir.
So the maximum population of human is in the tropical, then in the temperate, and very few, almost nil in the tundra, right?
Yes, sir.
So according to your point, the biodiversity of animals should be more than, should be more than in the tundra and the temperate, isn't it?
So, but in that region, the survival will be very difficult because due to the
Yeah, so
temperatures.
but those are the regions which are untouched, correct? Or have I not understood your point correctly?
So, like
Can you
yesterday, you was asking the question, like,
Mhm.
what is the reason of the biodiversity in some regions? Like, you asked this only, huh? Or I again
Yes, right.
misunderstood your question. So I was like
Yes. So
saying
mhm.
a lot of biodiversity is there. For example, if you consider Western Ghat or something Eastern Ghat, so there is no like settlement of people in that
I
areas.
see.
You got
Yes,
my point.
correct. That is a
Yes, sir.
very good point, and that is very correct a point. So that's why the the greatest biodiversity on Earth, it is found in the Amazon rainforest in the South America. So the Amazon forest is so huge, so big a forest that you can just see it from space as a forest patch. And what Arpit is saying is correct, because human interference is not there. Humans have not, they are not living in those forests. So the biodiversity has one relationship where humans don't go, biodiversity is rich, because when humans go there, they cut down the forest or do some um,
Pollution.
alterations to the pollution, alterations to the biodiversity for their own comfort and benefit, and biodiversity loss happens. Yes, that is one very good point we will talk about in today's chapter while studying conservation. So the largest biodiversity is in Amazon, and just to know, you should write that it is. So we find we have figured out till now more around 50,000, 40 to 50,000 plant species in Amazon forest alone. Okay, that's why it is the greatest biodiversity spot on Earth. Okay, and if you talk about mammals, amphibians, and reptiles, they are also in hundreds of different mammals, hundreds of different amphibians, hundreds of different reptiles. Even thousands of fish and birds have been found in Amazon. So, but plant majorly, around 40,000 to 50,000 plants. Okay, and talking about insects, they are just more than 1,20,000, 1,30,000 insect species has been found in Amazon. So since the time people are, so it is a very uh, 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 it is a thing which is said about Amazon when evolutionary biologists or ecologists study Amazon, is that you can find a new species every 10th day in Amazon,
What?
going by the rate. So if in in a year where there are 365 days, never has been a year where you find more than less than 40 to 35 to 40 species. So 35 to 40 species, even now, if you go and start exploring in Amazon, you will find. So that is around 10 one species per 10th day, right? Some people even say that one species a week you can find in Amazon if you go to untouched regions. So we don't still know the total biodiversity of Earth, of the Amazon, or in the oceans. So we know, I think we discussed that, we know very little, almost nothing about our deep sea
Ocean.
life. Yeah, deep sea ocean life. And it's very alien to what kind of life we see on the planet, on the ground or in the jungles, or in the lakes or
So,
in the shallow waters. Yes, Arpit.
sir, is it that difficult to go to the Amazon forest? Like, to
Yes,
find
it
out?
is that difficult, because don't just have to go, you have to come back also, because you won't be able to survive in Amazon, right? And you can only carry a limited supply. You cannot carry vehicles. There are no tracks on which you can run your vehicles. And Amazon, after one point of time, becomes so dense, you will not have sunlight falling on yourself. There'll be no sense of direction, in which direction you are going. If you don't have a compass, the only thing is a compass and your GPS, and nothing works. Okay. And compass is not a very, very good tool, because with technology, humans have become handicapped. So our dependency on
Very
GPS
true.
is so much that if I ask anyone, so our early voyagers, our pioneers, Columbus and all these people, could just voyage the whole earth with just a compass in their hand. But it's very difficult for someone today to do that in Amazon. Does not matter how much trained ecologist you are, you will always find it difficult. Okay, with just a compass, it's very dense. So that's why it's very difficult, and you have to just walk.
So they
Yeah.
just go only with the compass?
That's only a short distance radio transmission can work, which is like walkie-talkie. Short from transmitter and
Yes.
receiver are both in the same thing, so that does not have to go through satellite. Or sometimes even satellite phones do work, but nothing more than that, because you need something to relay the signal. There's nothing in the Amazon to relay the signal. No cellular tower, nothing. Okay. So explorations in the wild in Amazon are not just difficult, they are also expensive. So only few research groups around the globe can afford to explore Amazon and go deep and deep. Many regions are just untouched, never visited by humans, both in the Amazon or and in our ocean floors. Okay.
Why in the Amazon? Because of the same reason?
Because of the difficulties, technical. So inside the ocean, it is a problem of pressure, but in the Amazon, it's a problem of security. How much? Because there are animals also, right? Everything in Amazon, creeping, crawling, slithering, or walking, is just evolved to kill you, from a scorpion to a snake, and we don't know about what we should carry, what all things should we carry. And it's raining. It's a rainforest. So most of the time it's raining. So either you will die of a disease or an infection, or your feet getting, infected with clogged water in your boots. You will have no place to sleep. Those are not very good, happy forests. You go for a camping and come back. There'll be
That's
wild
what I'm
animals.
imagining.
Yeah. So it's the wildest of your dreams that you can imagine going in Amazon. So you have to be well prepared, and that preparedness has to come on all different levels. There has to be a team. You cannot go alone. And for the team, there has to be exponential amount of food, resources, drugs, medicines, antivenoms, antidotes, things to keep you warm, because Amazon is very cold in the night because it's a rainforest. No sunlight comes in. Even during the day, it's very cold. So all these are difficulties in exploring the complete Amazon. Okay.
So,
Amazon has its own system. It rains in certain parts of Amazon when it does not. It's huge. It's huge. It's bigger like a continent itself. It's very big. So if you see South America's map, anyone go to Google Map and do it a satellite view. Do a satellite view of the South America. You will see that 80% is just green. You will not see anything else. No cities, and that's just Amazon. It, you do that, you will realize what, and then you compare that region with your own country where you are currently. You will see that the whole country where you are living in is just smaller compared to. So it's just like asking a question how difficult it is to explore the whole India without any vehicle. And imagine, and because India you can walk, there are roads. Imagine such a big land withop any road or rail. It will be difficult, right? You cannot buy groceries. In India, you can. You start walking from Delhi to UP. You are not using, let's say you are not even using roads, but still you can go to some village, buy something and eat, right? When your stocks are gone. You can't do that in Amazon. Yes, Fatima, sorry.
I forgot what I was asking.
Okay, so ask me when you figure it out again. But yes, coming back to Arpit's point, that is the topic for today's discussion, patterns of biodiversity. What decides the pattern? So one thing that has been found is that the diversity of plants and animals is not uniform throughout the world. Okay, but it is uneven. Now, whenever a thing is uneven, whether it shows a pattern or not is the question. So there is a pattern. Now, the interesting pattern is that most of the diversity is influenced by latitude. So first thing is the latitudinal gradient. Okay, as you go away from equator towards the tundra, you will see that biodiversity decreases. in the tropical, the biodiversity is the highest. So you can write down, in general, the species diversity decreases. In general, the species diversity decreases. The species diversity decreases as we move from the equator towards the poles. Okay, both North Pole and South Pole. So tropical region or tropics, write down, tropical region which is from between Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. Tropical region, not this region, this one. Has more species diversity. More species diversity than temperate. Than temperate and tundra. So this is how they work. First, tropics have the highest, temperate has second, tundra has the least species diversity.
So tundra is the polar region, right?
Polar regions, yes. Tundra is the
Okay.
polar regions. Yeah. Should I write polar regions? They have the least species diversity. Okay. So talking about birds as an example, you will find that as we go from the equator, so near countries which are near the equator, you know, in the South America, let's say, which are near the equator or Africa, they have thousands of birds. Okay, taking an example, you can write Colombia. Colombia is a country whose example is given in your textbook as well. So Colombia is near the equator, and it has around 1,200 or 1,400 bird species. Okay, whereas if you go to Northern America, taking colder countries, or Europe, taking colder countries like or colder places like New York, you will find this diversity of birds in some hundreds. Some 100 odd birds you will find which are there in the New York. And if you go to
It's 105.
green, it's 105. Wow. So these data might not be very true, okay? Because if you are you referencing from an internet source which is updated or from your NCRT?
So it is from a book, sir.
From a book. Which book?
Sir, I have exam idea, so it was written in that book.
Oh, okay. So I'm not sure if it is updated, but so NCRT has all the numbers in NCRT are not very reliable, like in present context, because it's not very updated with latest facts, numbers. And as I told you, finding new species of organisms is a very dynamic process. We are finding new species of amphibians, birds, mammals every week if you pay not attention to it. So in hundreds, so we can say that in countries near equators, the species diversity of birds is in thousands. When you go to colder countries like America and New York, it is in hundreds. And if you go to Greenland or the tundra region, it will only be some 40-50 species that you can find, including penguin. It's a bird. Okay. So that's how it decreases. That is what people have figured out. Okay. Now the question is why, right? There has to be a reason. If you have figured out something, you also have to figure out the reason for it. So write down this question, which comes in school and board examinations from this chapter or this part of the chapter is why tropics have a greater biological diversity than temperate and polar regions. What do you think? Anyone would like to try some logic and answers?
So
Mhm.
the temperature is moderate in that area.
In that area, in which area?
So the tropical areas.
Exactly, you're correct. So how does that help? Because I told you that is not complete answer, because remember yesterday we were trying to argue against this logic and say that I'm just making your answer difficult and testing it. And we realize that the organisms which have adapted for a desert or a polar region, for them that is their heaven, right? They won't do good in tropics. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So why is the diversity less? There has to be something more than just this. Can anyone think? But it is related to it, but not the complete answer. So you are true that it is obvious to believe, or it is very, very logical to believe that in the tropics environment is so good. So there will be more diversity. But reason is why? Why can't, if one polar bear species can adapt and live very happily in the in the polar regions, why can't more? Why can't more diversity of species can adapt or could adapt is the question. So your answer is true for tropical. It does not justify why the same could not happen in temperate and polar. Anyone else?
The majority of organisms might be like comfortable in high temperatures.
So which means even those who were at polar, they thought that okay, let's go and live in the tropics. Let's just shift.
Sir, I am just guessing.
Yeah, you're guessing right, but what do you think? Anyone? Okay. So what makes diversity? Let's come to the basic question. What makes diversity? People, what makes diversity?
So can you repeat your question, sir?
What
Yes,
makes
sir.
diversity of species?
So different type of organisms in our surrounding.
Different species of organism,
Species, yes.
correct? And how
Yes.
do different species come up? The answer lies. So we're slowly going towards the answer. How does? Yeah, right.
Evolution.
Evolution, you say. And what does evolution depends on? What does evolution depends on? Variations, right? Either mutation or genetic
Yeah.
recombination. Yeah. And what does these variations depend on?
The
Reproduction.
gene.
Either reproduction or on time. So overall, they depend on time. To make many species, it takes time. So all these species have come in millions of years. You won't see You won't see species coming up so fast in higher organisms. Remember we discussed that viruses can evolve faster, but not higher organisms, right?
Yes, sir.
So all these different species of deer, it has come over millions of years, and the reason why we don't find much diversity of deer in the temperate or in the polar region is because speciation is a function of time, and as we go towards the polar region, we see that polar regions have been through multiple cycles of glaciation in the past. And you know what is glaciation?
Forming of glaciers.
Not just forming of
Melting of
glaciers. Yes, not just forming or melting. It is forming of glaciers, expanding of the glaciers, and when they melt, they move across. So, how many of you have watched Ice Age? Ice Age. No one has watched Ice Age. Okay, you should watch Ice Age. That's one thing I will suggest. So you know that all these saber-tooth mastodons, where were they?
In the cold place.
Where is that cold place on Earth?
Polar region.
tundra.
Only the polar region. So their traces could be found as far as what do you say, the temperate region, the European countries. And remember, we discussed that many of the mastodons, these very, very big elephant-like organisms, were not elephant basically, but big tusk mammals. Somewhere sharing common ancestry with elephants. So these were so huge. So how do you think so if their fossils are found in Greenland or in Iceland and also in some parts of Europe, which today are not connected lands, they are divided by oceans. So back then, how do you think these elements, do they swam across continents to go to various places? What do you think?
So what if the ice age it broke and then they were on the block
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the block was moving?
Yes, but what they were eating till the block did not have a motor or engine that it will transport
So
them
they
from
could
one
get the
continent to another.
fishes from the water.
Elephants don't catch fish from the water to eat. It's very
Okay.
they have a
Okay.
tusk, right? Have you seen an elephant catching a fish from water? So it's
No.
sitting at the edge of a block of ice, you are saying, and it's fishing, right? Something even logical than that is that the whole region coming from the temperate to the polar tundra was actually frosted.
That's not.
It was
How
yeah,
is that possible?
it is that is what is called ice age. That whole region was all ice. There was no water, no ocean. It was all covered with ice. So if you go back and do some internet, interesting things are present on internet. So if you look at there is something called cotton ball earth. So cotton ball earth is a concept, or it's called fur ball earth also, white fur ball earth. It's a concept that earth freezes and then melts. So it goes through a cycle of freezing. Not exactly the whole earth can freeze, but the cap and the bottom, major part freezes and then melts back. So earth has been through this cycle in this um, millions of billions of years of its existence, even before life was there and after life formed. Okay, so that is ice ages. So ice age is not just once, it has happened multiple times. And whenever an ice age happens, there is mass extinction of those organisms that cannot survive, and those who can survive have to adapt. So in the temperate and in the polar regions, there has been frequent glaciation events in the past, okay, which has not allowed organisms to flourish, get enormous amount of food, eat, enjoy, form species. So it's like some process is happening. Okay, like suppose some people are playing, and after investing 1 hour in the game, there will be a new, a new game that will come up. Let's say this is the process, but you are not allowing them to play long enough. You are just disrupting their play every half an hour. So they're playing, you're just showing all the kids, go away from here. Then they again come back, start playing again. Before they reach that point where they can begin a new game, you again shoo them off. You understand what's happening? So organisms could not get a very long, undisturbed period of millions of years to form species, which they got in the tropics, because tropical environment is more or less, it has remained relatively undisturbed for millions of years as compared to the temperate and the polar region. Does that make sense?
Very much sense.
Yeah. So that is one thing that scientists thought of, but just thinking through does not make science. So you have to go back and also start finding evidences for it, which they have found that for many years you won't find fossil records of higher organisms in great numbers in the Arctic if you dig deep. So it means that there was a time where species diversity was there. Some species there were many species of one kind of organism. You will find their fossils. Then after that, you will find, oh, now there is very less fossils found for a few 10-20 meters. And then again, you will find that, oh, there is fossil, but then there is no fossil. So this thing tells us that there has been frequent disturbance in their climate or in their existence. Okay, so write down. So that is one reason. What could be other reasons? So Arpit said is the second reason. The tropical environments, on the other hand, have a very predictable, less seasonal and more predictable environment throughout. And such constant environment will allow like the examples I gave, if there is no disturbance, the kid will play for long enough to diverge into 2 games and then 4 and then the 6. So this happened in the tropics, but not in the tundra. And the third reason is, remember while studying ecosystem, so whenever we have to reason or logic in science, we don't just have to stick to the chapter we are studying. Okay, the answers can come from other chapters. Remember we studied while studying ecosystem that there is a concept for ecosystem. For every ecosystem, what is the ultimate source of energy?
Sunlight.
Sunlight. And where do you think sunlight contributes the most? Near the equator. Sorry?
Oh, like that.
Yeah, like in the tropical or in the temperate or in the tundra.
Yeah, that is near the equator.
So also the energy available. So in the tundra, there is hardly anything to eat when it freezes. So you won't find herbivores in tundra. In Greenland, it's difficult to find herbivores or more herbivores or a diversity of herbivores. So polar bears eat fish, right? Bears eat fish. Seals, they also eat fish. Penguins also eat fish. Fish eat smaller fish. Smaller fish eat even smaller fish. And the smallest of the fish eat zooplanktons, and they eat phytoplanktons. So do you see plant grazing cattle? No, because the sunlight is not present enough and it's very cold for primary producers to be plants. So there the primary producers are mostly phytoplanktons. Make sense? Fatima, Arpit, Abhi and Kulsum?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that is also one reason that the more solar energy is available in the tropics, which contribute to higher primary productivity. Now you know what is primary productivity, and if there is a higher primary productivity, it will contribute a higher net primary productivity, which will go to the herbivores, and then higher energy that can go to the carnivores, and they will flourish, they will give rise to more kids, they will sexually reproduce, because reproduction is also an energy heavy process. Okay, so in the polar you will also see organisms not giving birth very, very frequently. So polar bears don't give birth, whenever they want. They have a breeding season. Penguins have a breeding season. So before the breeding season, there is a season in which they can afford to eat a lot. So when they are well fed, they are the healthiest, then they go and breed and bring kids. Not like the tropical, where you see that there's so much of energy and food available that you can just use it or utilize it for reproductive processes. You will find no insects, almost no insects living in the tundra. So diversity anyways goes down because 70% are insects, animals, right?
Yes.
Makes sense?
Yes,
So all
sir.
these points connected together, does it make sense why tropics have more diversity and not the tundra and temperate?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, so right on the first point of the answer, it is right on. Speciation is a function of time. Speciation is a function of time. And unlike the temperate and the polar regions, unlike the temperate and the polar regions, which were subjected to frequent glaciation events, which were subjected to frequent glaciation event, frequent glaciation events in the past, comma, the tropics have remained relatively undisturbed for millions of years. Okay. This allowed the tropics a long evolutionary time for speciation. Long evolutionary time for speciation. Okay. Second reason is tropical environments are less seasonal and relatively more constant and predictable. Tropical environments are less seasonal and relatively more constant and predictable than the temperate ones or than the temperate environments. Okay. And what is the benefit of a less seasonal environment? Add down. Constant environments promote niche specialization. You know niche, N-I-C-H-E?
Yes, sir.
N-I-C-H-E. Yeah. Niche specialization happens when environment
So
is constant for
constant environment promotes.
niche specialization and greater diversity.
So can you explain again what is niche?
N-I-C-H-E.
So what is it?
Okay, so niche is in ecosystem with in organisms and population. We studied a point called niche in organisms, right? This part was deleted, so maybe you have not covered it in school. But see, when the niche comes in this chapter, it is not deleted. So there's a problem. I think I have with deletions. They're not very well thought deletions. They just delete anything that they think, okay, we can delete this and it will save time. But it's a gap. Okay, so niche is in every habitat. When an organism, a population, lives for a very long time, breeds for a very long time, they develop some dependency on particular factors in the environment. For example, temperature, for example, water availability, for example, the amount of vegetation which is around, and they live in that region. Okay, so I say, for example, if I say that um, tigers live in forests, it's a vague statement. Even in forest areas, can tiger live in all sorts of forests? No, right?
No.
Tigers need some specialized conditions in which they can do their best, so they will live there. Okay, so that becomes their niche environment. Okay, do you understand? For example, many organisms live near water bodies or in the water bodies. For example, hippopotamus. So hippopotamus have their own niche in which they can flourish and live, or crocodiles have their own niche. So all of them are living in the same forest, but within the forest they are sharing different niche. You understand niche now? And in their niche they are important. They have a value. For example, tiger has a predatory value in its niche. It is a top predator. Nothing attacks a tiger in its niche. Okay, do you understand? But if I take a tiger and put it in Delhi, people will attack tiger to protect themselves. That's not tiger's niche. Okay. Is it clear, people?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Great. So okay, so let's move
So
to the
can I
yes.
ask
Yes,
you the
Fatima.
last sentence completely? It is
Okay, that
constant
is
environment promotes niche
niche specialization and
That's it.
yes, niche specialization and promotes diversity or allows greater diversity. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, cool. The third region, write down, there is more solar energy available in the tropics. There is more solar energy available in the tropics, which contribute to higher productivity. Which contributes to higher productivity. And greater diversity again. So if the productivity is higher, they get more energy, they can produce more, they can produce more kids. If there are more kids, there can be variations, mutations, which are more. So the chances of having different species or the chances of speciation events increases with that. Okay, all the three reasons are clear. This is a very important, this is the second important concept of this chapter.
Yes, sir, they are clear.
Cool. So that was first thing that decides the pattern, which is latitudinal gradient. Another thing that decides the pattern per se, which recently ecologists have figured out, is called a species area relationship. So they figured out that there is a relationship between species and area. Now this is some advanced concept that you have to pay attention to. What it means is that let's first define it, write down. And it was given by a naturalist and a geographer, if I'm not wrong. So his name was Alexander Humboldt. Okay, so just for you to know, Alexander Humboldt. So he gave a what do you say, theory, because he was an explorator. He has explored extensively the South American jungles, including the Amazon forest, and he realized that within a region, okay, so write down, this relationship states that within a region, species richness increases. Species richness increases with increasing the area of exploration. With increasing the area of exploration, that is common to think, right? This is logical to think that if I just explore 5 kilometer square of Amazon, I will find some species. But if I explore 10 kilometer square of Amazon, I will find more species. If I explore 30 kilometers, I will find even more species. So that's obvious. And that he said that is true, but only up to a limit, right? Increasing the area of exploration, but only up to a limit. So this is a new thing that this also ticked. Yes, Fatima, any question?
No, sir.
Yeah, so but only up to a limit. Next point. So the relationship between species richness and area, the relationship between species richness and area for many organisms or a wide variety of organisms is a rectangular hyperbola. Is a rectangular hyperbola. Now mathematics, you know what is a rectangular hyperbola or a hyperbolic graph?
Yes.
Yeah, what is it? How does it look?
A curve upward.
Yeah, a curve, right? So
Yes.
so when you, there are two axes. So hyperbola and hyperbola, right? So this, or if you say this, right? This is enough to explain. Or if you are starting increase, so it increases with time, you will find that there is a relationship. After one time it saturates. So here we have the species and here we have the area. This is a rectangular hyperbola. So we'll study the same exactly. So what he said, if this is clear to you, that if we keep on x-axis, so x and y-axis is there. On y-axis there is species richness or species diversity. How rich is the number of species? And here is area. So in the beginning, as you will increase the area, species richness will increase for a smaller number. It will keep going very good, but after one point of time it will saturate. Okay, so after one point of time, no matter how much area you keep on increasing, you will not find more than that species richness. Now that same will be true for Amazon, but Amazon is so big that we have not even reached somewhere here. Forget about the saturation. Okay, and this curve can be explained by a formula which says S is equal to CA raised to power Z. And what is S here? S is species richness.
A is area.
Perfect. A is area. What is C? C is the y-intercept, mathematical connotation of the graph where it intercepts on the y is C. And what is Z, which is the power here? Z is slope of the line, or also known as regression coefficient. Okay, you can figure it as a slope of line. Now this is just an observational graph. It has a problem. What is the problem with this graph? This Z will change. So here the Z will be different because the slope is different. Here it will be different. And here it will be different. Here it will be different, right? Z will be different at these points. You agree? Because the
Yes, sir.
slope is different, right? It is more steep here, less steep here at point A versus point C. So in mathematics, whenever we have to make any curve a linear, so we use a logarithmic scale. So the relationship can be depicted on a straight line. So we call it log-log scale. So on a log-log scale, the graph will come something like this, a linear graph, so that the slope becomes constant. And for this, the equation will be, you just have to make log. Log S is equal to, if you know how to convert into logarithmic equations, log C, if it is multiplication, it becomes plus, and this Z, which is in power, comes in front, Z log A. So by this equation, you can study this relationship mathematically by linearizing this relation. Okay. Let me make it again. Okay, is it clear,
Yes, sir.
everyone? So both are the same. This formula is for a non-linear graph of species richness and area relationship. This formula is for a linear graph of species richness and area relationship. Now this is just a theory. Again, in science, if you cannot find proofs or cannot prove it, it's not science. Maybe it's just a story which came out of Alexander Humboldt's mind. Maybe he did not explore enough. So prove it. So ecologists now have started figuring out that this value of Z, okay, in both the case, it lies in a range of 0.1 to 0.2 if you are studying a small country or a small city.
So what is the meaning of regression coefficient?
Yes, so it is the slope of line. Regression coefficient is the slope of line, how steep or how what is the opposite of steep? Steep. So if this is the plane, this is steep and this is less steep. You understand? So if I
Yes,
put a
sir.
ball here, this will roll faster versus a ball. Do you understand? Like,
Yeah.
actually, it's not true what I just said, but just to make you understand, chances of it crashing or falling down is more. So this is less steep. So slope decides if this slope, if I make this graph like this, let's say this is the graph for a one region and this is the graph for region B, region A and region B. Just look at the red graphs. What does these graphs tell you? So does it tell you that in region A, when the study was done, does it tell you that for the same area, let's say this is the area, if I explore this much of area, for A region, I will find only few species, but for this area B, I will find more species. So, right?
Yes,
Even
sir.
more. It has to go here actually. Do you understand? So when the graph
Yes.
becomes more steep, it's how we read it changes. It tells us different things, correct?
Yes, sir.
Depending on what is on the x and the y axis. So that is z. Z decides how steep or less steep the graph will be. Is it
So all of
clear?
this you have to do it with the actual values, right? You cannot just
Exactly, right. So what Humboldt said, someone had to do it with the actual value, like Fatima said very correctly. So people started doing, let's see if this is correct or not. So ecologists figured out that this is correct. And how it is correct? Because when you do the study of all the taxonomic group of like any species, let's say birds or or just fish or insects or something. So for a small region, like a small country or a city, like let's say you are going to study uh, uh, birds in New York City or birds in New Delhi or plants in Great Britain, because Great Britain is a very small island country. So you find that the z values, which decides the slope, is less 0.1 to 0.2, regardless of what you are studying. It will, so for let's say for fish it can be 0.18, for birds it can be 0.19 or 0.12 for insects or something like that, but it is a low value, which means if the z value is less, it is not very steep, right? So write down. Ecologists discovered that the z values, for any taxonomic group studied, the z value for any taxonomic group studied in a smaller region like a city or a small country always range between 0.1 to 0.2. Okay. Second point, but if you analyze species area relationship for large areas like an entire continent, if I say instead of a city, I say what's happening at a
species
continent
area
level.
what?
Sorry.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your sentence? But you analyze, but if you
But
analyze species
if you
area,
analyze species area relationship on large areas like entire continents, large areas like entire continent, the slope of the line is much steeper, which means the z value is higher. The slope of the line is much steeper, or the z value is between 0.6 to 1.2, very high, right? Almost 5 to 6
yes,
times
sir.
higher. So when this data was collected, it was very huge amount of work by ecologists all around the globe. So science cannot be done by one person. as they say it, everyone can just add a dot to existing knowledge, but together we can do wonders. So together on a global level, over time, over 30 years, 40 years of research in ecology, they realize that what Humboldt said makes sense. It's true. So when we mathematically has plotted the graph to look at the regression coefficient of taxonomic categories in a country or in a city or in a continent, as we keep going higher, the z value changes from 0.1 to 0.2 in small cities or in small countries to 0.6 to 1.2 in larger continents. Okay. So these two things, species area relationship and the latitudinal gradient, they decide how the species richness will be distributed on our planet Earth. Amazing study to do, right? If you think that what is the laboratory here, it is the whole planet. People are trying to understand how life has distributed on planet. Isn't it amazing?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So we should also think before being proved as a species and destroying it, because it's not we who has the power to create. So we also do not have the power to destroy. We do have the power to destroy actually, but we should not do it. They're a destructive species in general. Okay. So with this, I'm giving you a homework. So in your textbook, you have to read about the importance of species diversity in the ecosystem, which again is a repetition of what we have discussed. Okay, like total biomass will be different if species go extinct, if only the bees goes extinct or ants go extinct, what will happen, etc., etc. Okay, so write down what you have to read is segments from your NCERT, which are 15.1.3. Then you go to 15.1.4. This you have to read. And in the next one class, we will finish this chapter, which will also be the last chapter of your legal, like the syllabus of your boards. But the last chapter is 16th in your textbook, so I will not completely leave it untouched. We will have one class on discussing that and some concepts from chapter 9, which is again deleted, strategies of food production enhancement, right? So these two chapters are deleted, but I will tell you some important aspects of this which can help you for entrances, which you don't have to worry about or prepare for boards. Okay. So in the next class, the whole 1.5 hour we dedicate to biodiversity conservation, why it is important, what are the ways, and we'll finish the chapter. Okay, everyone?
Yes, sir.
That's the last concept of this chapter. Pay attention to species area relationship and latitudinal gradient, because questions, if they come, a 3 marker or a 4 marker, there are 90% chances that a 3 marker or a 4 marker question will either come on pattern